there's a little RC in here, and you can barely tell the color difference. It threw me off at first. I thought, oh, it's all the same color, but it's not. It's too close in color.
That might, where's that?
Oh, there's that. I mean, I can't even see the color difference, but there is like a demarcation in there evidently. Yeah.
See that?
Yeah. Very tricky.
All right, it's 6:30. I'll call this meeting to order. First order of business, approval of the minutes from our previous meeting.
Actually, you can put that one in.
No one has any questions or concerns with that? I'd be looking for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Make a motion to approve minutes as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Yes, please.
Next, conditional use permit for, I like that you call it a used car lot, given that's what it is. Not what you want us to address it.
Auto dealership.
Return to planning commission for city council for wording clarification. I'm assuming someone's got a little background to this here.
I kinda kicked it back to us, talked to the guys on the city council, and, didn't really, the other definition we came up with didn't really restrict it from using the adjacent properties for, so if somebody, a renter come in and rented an office and they start parking in the, post office parking lot, walk across there, we didn't have the verbiage to keep them from doing that, cause basically if they were to do that, it would cause a hassle, possibly for the post office staff, and then there's no really teeth there to rescind the conditional use permit. So between Teresa and Melanie and I did a little bit here, we kinda came up with this here, if you guys are good with that, we'll move forward with that. That's about it. I thought we had that in there.
Well, it was worded differently and.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have some new wording. We can send back to the council.
So, that's about all it is. Just basically, it keeps anybody, the list of everybody on here from basically, or otherwise utilize any adjoining property. Is basically what we didn't have in that. We talked about that, but the verbiage that came out for the city council to approve, that wasn't in there. He could have still been able to basically park on there. So, cause I know Melanie had addressed the church, the gentleman there, I forget his name, offered,
Johan?
if he had, Johan offered to have, if they had overflow parking, that he could park over there. And she wanted to see if we wanted to let that, put that in there. I said, no, it doesn't matter if we don't, in our parking ordinance, we don't allow, off-site parking.
It's gotta be contiguous.
So I said, if that's something he's gonna allow them to do, it's no different than them parking on Main Street, cause she's worried about people walking across Manorville Avenue. I said, it's no different, they park on Main Street and walk down and look at a used car, so there's nothing that we wanna control that way, so. That's about it.
The one thing that I sort of wonder a little bit about, and obviously it's something that someone can work around if they need to, but where the sweet corn people park basically every summer.
Right, and, in all reality.
We're technically at this point saying, no, you can't do that. And like I said, there's plenty of other spaces where they could probably work something out that would be equally visible and accessible for them, but.
Well, I think they probably got, cause they used to be, in Images for years, they were in there, so I don't know if they had a falling out with, I can't think of his name, that he didn't let them in there anymore or what, but, I mean, that's the state's property there, so if they.
Right,
if they
right,
wanna let
I mean,
them-
I realize what we're trying to do is target the adjacent business owner who seems to think he had sort of
An inherent right to it.
tacit permission to go ahead and use that property,
Right.
even though it's not his to use. You know, so I'm just saying technically, they will be in violation of that as well.
Well, and true, because in all reality, to access that site there without driving over the city curb, you have to use his driveway to get into that grassy area.
Right.
So that'll be something that we might have to deal with from him come July.
Well, you guys might. I don't think you're gonna keep inviting me back here, but, you know, but anyway, it's just one of those things that we need to look forward to as we're doing this, I
Right.
think, you know. You maybe thought of that anyway, so basically what we're looking now is just to adopt the wording outlined in this one paragraph, essentially.
The new wording.
So amend the condition to the conditional use permit, essentially.
Yep.
So we'll amend it to read at no time shall Davidson's Development LLC, its customers, vendors, employees, lessees, assignees, or any other individuals associated with its business park any motor vehicle on or otherwise utilize any adjoining property, right? We're just gonna
Yep.
add that to it. In
Well,
place of the less, or the more ambiguous phrasing that we
Yeah,
have.
that we'll put this in place of the other phrase.
Right. Anyone have any thoughts on that? If not, we need a motion to amend the wording to the conditional use permit granted last month.
Make that motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Potential use for the old BCI building. At this point, they haven't come to us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're here, you're there.
Yeah, you're there.
So, just, hold on, okay. Come on up, identify yourself.
My name is Ryan Matlock. I work for Greg Storm. He's planning on buying the building and using the front space as 2 one-bedroom apartments, and planning on using the back initially for storage. But then, if we don't need it for storage, we're planning on renting it out as a small, like, shop. And we're here to try to get that approved for the back area.
I think Linda needs your address too. Should Linda?
Huh?
Yeah, you need to
You
state
need
the
an
address.
address for it. Well, it's not a public meeting, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay.
So the way I see this at this point, we don't have any kind of action to take with it, right? I mean,
No.
you need to ask us to change the zoning. What's it zoned at currently? I don't have a.
On here, so it's RC, right?
Yes.
Right, and currently a shop is not a permitted use or a conditional use
Right.
in RC.
So we would need to rezone it to potentially, what? I don't have a book, so I don't have that stuff.
Or add, you could potentially add a conditional use. That would allow for a shop. And to rezone it to R2, I don't think will help anything.
Well, that's just it, I mean, the RC is the buffer between the commercial and the residential, so that's
Right.
one thing that we gotta keep in mind, you know. And granted, there's been in the history of having certain provisions that we've let happen because of that, you know, like the, Mrs. Roberts' house I go by from when I was in high school, in the corner of First Street and Madam Avenue, the northwest corner, that house there. At one point in time, I don't know who was all here, but you were probably here maybe when they
The
allowed us
fence?
to put that fence up. You know, we let them put it in basically right on the setbacks because of they didn't, you know, had all the commercial on one side with the body shop and the towing business or the mechanic shop at that time. We saw it as letting them put up the fence to be able to create some kind of privacy and noise reduction, and versus what their house and their property does for the neighbors to the north of them. So their property would be the buffer to the houses to the north, so we let them work it with having a fence there to help them enjoy their property also. So, and then, of course, I'm sure everybody knows my feelings on spot zoning. So, because you gotta remember, you start spot zoning, you're looking at doing it for everybody. So, it's that great full Pandora's box. Once you do it for one, you really got yourself in trouble for doing it for everybody else. And I would think that if we were to go through and create more permitted uses, I think that would probably take council action, right?
Yeah.
So, I just muddy the water for you. No.
I'm trying to
You're
picture.
up in that area. I mean, you should have some pretty good viewpoints on that.
Yeah, I'm right there, way there. Yeah, I'm kinda surrounded by commercial. The only neighbor I have is there to the north. But, yeah.
Cause a two-family dwelling would fit in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have preliminary plans if you guys want.
You have an idea?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Just an idea.
The apartments don't really seem to be an issue.
No.
No, it's
the shop thing. So what you wanna do is create a duplex, not two duplexes, right? Two duplexes is a duplex.
Mm-hmm.
Two dwelling units.
Okay, since we are creating a new, basically they would be creating a new apartment, two apartments. I didn't think to look into what we do for, what do we have for parking?
Yeah, I
Cause the
think-
only thing there is off-street parking, right?
I've never been around behind the building, but I think you're right.
Yeah, there's no parking behind the building.
How wide is it between that building and the building to the south? That's one back in there.
About 6 feet or so.
My curiosity is to put the two apartments in there. Are we required to have some parking spaces for those? So, if we can't use this off the street parking to count as that, right? No.
You have to have off-street parking. As part of our parking ordinance, for an apartment, there has to be so much.
I should know that parking ordinance reference from the top of my head here.
2 spaces per dwelling unit.
What section are you in, Linda?
I am in
Page
page
113.
154,080, off-street parking.
Well, and plus, if there's gonna be a business in there of some sort, they have to have off-street parking for the business tenant.
Can I ask you a question here? This is the alleyway here, if you walk back in here, and this is part of the building here.
Yep.
Does that go back into like around Culligan, into the Culligan
Yep.
like parking space back there?
It goes back there by Culligan. The Culligan building is mainly right there.
Okay. Is there some sort of, I don't know, research that can be done, because I mean, it's kind of a unique situation, we have, you know, and trying to figure out.
I look at this and wonder how you use that building for anything, and neither parking requirements.
Right, that's why I'm almost to the point, it almost needs to be in the,
A variance.
yeah, because you have to demo the building to get parking spaces, so you have to have some sort of a variance to, I guess at least for the 2 apartments. What type of, like, do you have somebody in mind for the shop area?
Not yet.
From a parking perspective, this building has always been served by on-street parking.
Right.
Oh,
So,
go ahead.
in terms of just.
My name is Jack
basic-
Roberts, I also work with, Mr. Storm. Brandon's kind of my office assistant, and I kind of fell out of the loop on this a little bit, so I thought I might try and help him out here a little bit with one of your questions. I do think initially that we're gonna use it for storage, and initially that's why Greg is looking at buying it. We need it for storage. The concern he has is, well, down the line, I may not need it for storage anymore. Then what am I gonna do with this back part? Then if I wanted to rent it out to someone else for storage, or a shop area or something like that, they might tell me no. Well, I don't wanna buy the building and find out later that I have all this storage that I don't need anymore and I can't use it for anything. So that's, that's kind of why we're here, because he's concerned about that, and he has a purchase agreement, but obviously there's contingencies, so you don't wanna
Right.
buy it if he's not gonna be able to use it down the road, but initially we would use it for our own storage. Greg has a lot of apartments and stuff in Rochester, and wants to build a couple apartments here too, but we have a lot of appliances and furniture and things like this that, are all good stuff, but we're running out of storage in Rochester right now, so initially we would use it for that too.
Well, appreciate your coming forward with this, but I mean, I now look at it as maybe it's something, if you're gonna want it for storage, you're gonna have a lot of offloading, unloading and stuff that you're gonna basically be parked in the street to do that.
Well,
because
There,
that.
the storage area, you'd have to come in the back, this back area behind Culligan, unload and then leave. I mean, obviously, there's no room for really parking back there, there's just room for, because there is, I believe, an easement to allow the current owner to use that, to get back there and put
Do you
stuff in
have,
and out
do you have
there.
record of that easement? Is that documented?
I don't, I would
'Cause if
assume the
that-
realtor and stuff does, but I'm making an assumption there, sir, so I don't know, but.
That would make things a lot easier if that easement is in there for something like that, because like I said, if it was to, I mean, my thoughts would be we'd have to send this down to the chief of police and see what he thought too then, because like I said, if you don't have that easement, at any point in time, they just say, no.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
think there's an easement
So-
there,
And then
because there's a
you'd be-
garage door back there and stuff, so I believe there is an easement. I can't say for sure, but
Right.
it seems to me, and I was out there with one meeting when the realtor was with us and we were just looking around at it. I'm pretty sure I heard him say, oh yeah, you have the right to go back there and use that door, but you can't leave your vehicle sit there when you're done.
Right, well, we've all heard of the horror stories of people who, well, Mr. Drips down here who thought he owned a grassy area that's the state's, you know, and so I mean, it would be a lot easier, I think, at least for myself to look at. This is if you're gonna use it for storage, and you have a spot that you can load and offload, that you're not in the street, because if that's the case, then you're looking at a storage facility that you gotta use the city's street to often offload load.
Yeah, which, yeah,
You know, so.
there's no access from the street. The only access to the back area is behind the Culligan building there.
Right, well, I mean, you could scoot down that walkway, 'cause I used to go back there to the print shop, so I used to go back, go down that walkway, that little hallway there, where I go to the print shop. But, that would be something that we'd have to consider too, to be able to turn it into a storage or whatever. 'Cause if, like I said, if you don't have an easement in there, you buy it, the person might get into a feud and may just say, oh, no more, you know?
I'm sure there's an easement.
So.
Yeah, there's probably some sort of shared access agreement with Culligan's, because if I remember right, the actual property just out the building leads up, kind of dog legs back around First Street, and they use every bit of that parking lot to park their trucks, and whenever they're receiving deliveries and all that stuff, so, you know, if you're doing a lot of loading and unloading or something like that, it could be a
Well,
conflict
yeah, and it
there.
wouldn't, I don't think it would be a lot, but I do know that they must have had the ability, the previous owner must have had the ability to use that garage door. He said there was a car parked in there at one
Well,
time. The
yeah.
realtor just told us there was
Yeah.
a car parked in there at one time. So must have the ability just to kind of get in and out of there, but not stay, obviously, because there's no room.
Yeah.
Culligan needs all the room for parking purposes.
And also, I talked to Culligan, and they normally use that back area in the morning and late afternoon for the deliveries. Otherwise, they said we can use it.
It's kind of a gentleman's agreement thing, which doesn't do anything.
Right, I mean, I have the same thing down here on my property. I mean, I live right across the creek here, and I got a building down there. In my parking lot, the Sixplex next door has to use my parking lot to access their Six. I have a gentleman's agreement with what they'll get a lifetime lease. If I ever sell, I'll put it in the deed that there'll be an easement in there. Right now, it's just a gentleman's agreement, but for some reason, if I wanna turn it into a dirt, I say, no, you don't get to use it anymore, just because it's not documented, there's no legal description on it. So, that's what I'm just getting at, if you have that, if there's an easement in place, it'd be a lot easier for myself to look at this, to go further with it. I mean, I think the 2 apartments, I think that's something that is, a variance would probably work. I don't think I'd see a problem too much with that.
For a variance for the parking.
For the apartments.
Yeah.
You know, but to create a storage unit or a workshop back there that you have to access it through somebody else's property without that easement for us to look at and see, I would have a tough time sending it to city council for any type of approval on something to move forward with. So.
Just in a very generic sense, anytime you come to planning and zoning with some theoretical business, some theoretical point in time in the future, it is very difficult for us to act on it. It'd be very difficult for me to act on it, I won't speak for anybody else. But you've got a breakdown of what the uses are for something zoned as it is. I guess if you were gonna make a buy or you're gonna sell the property and wanted to know what your options were for an unused part of the building, you're probably better off making that buy decision based on these list of arrangements as opposed to hoping we might rezone it at some point down the road.
So, do you feel like if we had an easement documentation, that it might be something that that could go to the city council for a variance, for the necessary variances? Because there'd probably be two variance issues.
Well, I don't, we can't do variance for use.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So you'd have to look at it as possibly adding another use to the zoning, a conditional use to the, zoning, the
Oh,
RC.
okay.
So, but then we're gonna get back into, I'm the first one to say is, here we go, we're gonna be opening, we'll have to look at all the RC areas in the city to see how that is gonna impact, if we make that change, what that could impact us down the road on all the other RCs also. So it might also come back and say, you know what, we've got too many other, also next thing you know, our whole RC area will end up changing or something to where, you know, it might not be something where the city's gonna want to look at it that way, you know, have that happen. So, just depends on everything.
And I just have a general question, because I'm not even ever went in front of a commission, or I haven't worked on city council or any stuff like that. Would this be, if we were to get able to get approval with something like this, would it be similar to a situation that you see a lot on main streets, and maybe you even have some here in Casson, where you might have a business down below in the same building, and then up the stairs above the businesses, there's a couple apartments?
Yes, we have that downtown.
Okay, so would this be a similar situation? Only difference is you've got the business in back and the apartments out front.
I don't know if I would consider it that, because the way it is worded, that you can't have any in the, what is it, so in the central business district, there's a C1, you can't have any ground level apartment buildings, right?
Right.
So
that, okay,
so you're
that
out
helps
of
me.
you're out of that scenario completely.
Well,
So-
and like, I think what you just told me too, is you're not even in that same zone. This is RNC,
Right.
and then downtown where I was talking about, that's a different.
It's C1.
C1.
Yep.
And so they have different rules, like, oh yeah, you can do it, but the apartments have to be upstairs.
Correct.
Makes sense, okay.
People tried to convert the barber shop on Main Street into apartments at one stage, didn't they? And turn them down to the other side.
No, the one, which side? South side?
Erdman's.
One right next to Erdman's, we had that discussion with them, that turned
Was
it
it
down.
2 years back?
Oh, yeah, down the main floor, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, all we can really do is go, the owner would've been here himself, but he had to go down south. So all we can really do is go back and talk to Greg, our boss, and just tell him that, what the issues you guys have are, and see what he wants to do, and talk to the realtor. If he feels like there's a reason to bring the easement back here, or have a different plan that you guys might, consider, you know, then we just have to get on the agenda again.
Yeah, like I said, I would think the biggest start would be if they have an easement that lets you utilize that, is if that goes with the property on every sale, you know, that would be something that more easier for myself to look at. I'm not gonna speak for these guys, but, that would, I would think we could possibly move forward then, but I don't think that I could get behind it if it didn't have an easement to use that, because you just.
And
Yeah.
that's pretty.
It's pretty clear that you can't create any parking there.
Yeah.
I think for anyone to ever use this building for anything, and we would like to see somebody continue to use the building, I
Right.
think, right?
Yeah.
There's gonna have to be some discussion as to how we can go about allowing on-street parking rather than off-street parking, right? I don't think, that, well, if it were me, I would be willing to consider such a thing for a property such as this, 'cause it's a little more unique than if it was a piece of bare ground and you're trying to build a building and, you know, then we'd say, no, you gotta have off-street parking. I don't know how you get off-street parking here. So we would have to consider something like that, and personally, I would be willing to be part of that discussion, if it were me. But, the issue, so that, I think as far as the townhome development thing goes, it seems like a nice use for the space if we can come to some sort of a workaround for the parking ordinance. The storage part is a little harder, just because you don't have any way to get to it, at this point, through your own property. If you could get in writing somewhere that they're gonna let you get to it, then that it makes it a little easier for us to consider that. And definitely one of those things, I think you wanna know for sure before you buy the building. I would wanna know that if I were buying the building, so that'd be
Yeah, and I have
kinda
to,
like piece
I have
number
to
one to
admit.
come back to us with.
Yeah.
So.
I admit, Greg probably knows, he probably knows the answer to that easement thing. I wanna say I'm 99% sure it's there and it's all good, but I didn't bring it, I don't have what you need to feel comfortable with that right now, so, I think that's one of the things we would have to dig up for you, and I'm sure we can. 'Cause I'm pretty sure, like I said, being involved in just listening to the realtor and Greg talk, that there is an easement there, and it would go along. It's one of those easements that just goes with the property for ever and ever, or until someone negotiates it out of there, but that's my understanding. So what, I think we'll, like I say, we'll talk to Greg, and if we can do our homework a little more on the easement, maybe bring it back to you, if if he wants. If he thinks it's gonna be a struggle, he may walk away from buying it, but, maybe not too. Maybe he'll figure out a different way to use it, so.
Good.
'Cause he's pretty happy with the price I think he's, can get it for, he just wants to make sure he can use it, make, best use out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So, we'll just come back when we find that easement, is that all right? All right, thank you,
Yeah,
folks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, solar ordinance discussion.
So the city of Casson is, involved in the Green Steps program, and Nancy's been pretty active with that. And one thing she brought to my attention was, an expanded, solar ordinance, more than what you currently have at 154.073. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention. You certainly do not have to act tonight. You can take it home, compare it to what we currently have, see if you see any value in some of the additional, restrictions or requirements that are in the model ordinance, and then come back and have a discussion at your next meeting about, do you see a need for a change or not? Just introducing some options.
Do we have any comment on that at this point, or
Sounds good.
we're just gonna?
Come back.
Y'all gonna look at it and come back to it later?
Okay.
All right,
Alright.
I can live with that.
All right.
Upcoming public hearing for a Quick Trip sign.
I put the information in your packet, but there'll be a public hearing next month for that sign, and it's a new sign, but it's gonna look just like the one as you turn the corner onto 8th, the one with the prices, not the tall one, they're leaving that one there. But this is the one that is on the corner on Manorville and 8th Street, right on the corner of their property as you turn there. Has the prices, has the electronic sign. Well, they're not using that same sign, but they're gonna put another one on the new property. So it's an electronic sign, which needs a conditional use.
Yep.
It's 5 feet taller than what we allow. It's basically doing the same thing we did, but since the conditional use went with that sign on that property, we have to do it again for the new property. But it's gonna be the same like the same sign.
Same height as they have now?
Correct. Because we did a conditional use when they put that one up.
Right, no, I remember that.
Yep.
So as long as we're not going any higher, I don't see.
No. The really, really tall one, they're leaving on that spot. They're not moving that. But this one is going across the road. Well, and this sign is actually going away. They're putting a new one, but it's gonna look like this.
Okay, since they are gonna own both sites, they can leave the one sign.
Correct.
What if they sell the site?
If they sell the site, that we'll have to deal with when that happens, because maybe they won't sell that portion. But then still with that site, that sign, you have to have the circumference. So we'd have to deal with that if they decide to sell that.
Well, I think that's something that needs to be brought up to them ahead of time, so they know.
Yeah, and
You know.
I can send Quick Trip the information on that tall sign.
Yeah, 'cause I'd rather have them know the information if they're gonna sell a site, that they might have some complications with having that sign on someone else's property. I mean, 'cause what do we allow? 'Cause we don't. Isn't there some wording, I'd have to dig back in the book, but isn't there some wording that you can't physically put the sign on somebody else's?
It'd be an off-premise sign, which I believe those are generally not allowed.
Well, and if they sold it to the people whoever bought it said, sure, we don't care, the sign can stay, maybe they wanna add their name underneath it or something, but.
Right, but do we have a certain area that they can, how close can they build to that sign?
Oh, yeah, we have that.
I mean, that's just, I think, something that needs to be, that Quick Trip needs to have in their hands, saying, these are, if you sell the property, this is what, if when people come to the planning commission, they're gonna look at that sign, they're gonna question all these things.
Well, yeah, and they could build only so close to the sign, but they could potentially, if Quick Trip made the deal with them, you know, the people leave the sign there and they can just add their name underneath.
Right.
Because
Right.
we've already varianced the height, we've already varianced the sign, so the signs can stay there, as long as they know we can make sure that they get all that information.
Yeah, like I said, it'd just be something that you give to Quick Trip, say, here, keep this in your file when your realtor is gonna sell your property. You know they're not gonna sell to another gas station, obviously, but,
Right.
you know, so the people that when they're looking at it, say, well, we can't, you know, we can keep the sign, we can take over ownership of the sign, they can, you know, we can lease them a spot on it, but we can only build so close to it, or, you know, something like that, so. You know,
Yep.
so at least they have the information up
Yep.
front.
Yeah, we can make sure they have that. And that.
Okay.
But, yeah, this is only about that other pylon sign.
So, on the map here, I'm not really seeing it, where's that sign supposed to go?
Sign number 20?
Number 20, so it's back,
All the way up here, okay,
Yep.
in front.
it will actually face 8th Street, or the county highway.
Yeah.
Anyway, we just wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming as a public hearing next month.
Next month.
So the 20 is the circle with the 20 and the D53 underneath?
Correct.
There's houses right across the street, right?
No.
I'm thinking there's that more commercial stuff over there.
That's their old property right across the street.
Yeah, I'm upside down here. This way, yeah, never mind.
for y'all to think about for next month, I guess. So this one would or would not be higher than, the maximum allowable?
It is 5 feet higher. But when you read it, it says in a C3, you can conditional use, you don't have to variance the height. In a
Right.
C3, you can conditional use it, so we can do the conditional use for the electronic sign, the height, all at once.
Just like we did before.
Mhm.
What did you say, Linda, you can put it under, we put it under the conditional use, or we put it under the variance?
No, we would put it under conditional use, because in the sign section, there is a caveat for C3. Let me find my sign. .154.082, and it is, it's like H.
H3, is that the one you identified in the packet?
Number 3,
This is the one you've got starred here, right, where it says lots within 1,000 feet of the center line of Highway 14 may as a conditional use be permitted an extra 300 square feet and a maximum elevation of 1,350 feet. Is that it?
Mm-hmm, that's the one.
Which one are you under?
H3, and about the middle of the paragraph. Do not have the same version.
Interesting thing about that, if it's 20 feet above the mean center line of the street, and then there's, on this particular site, there's a certain amount of elevation change between the street and where the sign's gonna be, so.
Right, and that's
Zero
why
to
we
20, yeah.
tied it to elevation above sea level at some point, so people couldn't put up just, I mean, it goes back to, in a sense, the discussion started with Burger King,
Mm-hmm.
as I recall it. And all the testing they did to see how tall of a sign they needed to be able to see it from the highway. So they would be below that, it would just be higher than the 20 feet above mean street level, basically, is the discussion we're having, right? Because it'd be shorter than the other great big sign.
Oh, it
Which
is
is-
considerably shorter.
Right.
That sign is like 65 to 68 feet.
Right.
This one's only 25 feet.
Right.
And it is within 1,000 feet of the center line of Highway 14.
This is the latest and greatest.
What?
Ours don't match.
Oh.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 'cause I used to always bring my old one, remember, my old
Yeah.
book? And you finally gave me a new one, I started bringing this one.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, my sign stuff says, I don't remember, 2 years ago you gave me this?
Yeah?
Probably,
Oh.
at least.
Yeah, 'cause you got different tabs than you had before.
Yeah, 'cause I had the blue one before.
Right.
I still have that one. My favorite. Yeah, my sign doesn't have the last half of that paragraph, my number 3.
See, I don't know how old yours would be, because I don't remember amending this. I mean, this
I
has
don't
been
either.
stops after, and shall not exceed 100 square feet on all sides for any one premise. Stops right there.
We'll have to get you updated. That's right. We'll just go ahead and order it, and then we don't have to worry about where to get copies from.
This is another question too about the, you know, the 100 square feet, is that taken as aggregate? So you have all the signs on that face? So you couldn't have 1, 2, 3 signs, it's an aggregate.
No, I believe it's an aggregate of all the whole face of all of it.
So, I mean, for conditional use anyway, and their total square feet proposes over the 100 square feet aggregate anyway. So that would be another.
Right, so that you have
part of
conditional use the
yeah.
square footage and the height and the electronic sign.
Right. I mean, that's the way I read that though, it's 100 square feet on all sides. If it were any individual side, then it should say 100 square feet on any side, or any one side. Right, so I mean, I've been taking that as the total footage of the sign, which usually is just the front and the back, not really 4 sides, but.
Right, and if you look at this, it's the 117 feet, it says the top part where it says quick trip is 36 square feet, and the other part where the prices are is 52 square feet, so it is an aggregate of all of it.
Yeah.
88 plus another 30, no, 29, so 117 basically. Yeah. On the one side. So basically it's 230 square feet as opposed to 100, but they're within 100 square, or 1,000 feet of the center line, right? So that allows them up to 400 square feet, the way I'm reading this.
So would your interpretation of the 100 square feet be both sides, so if one
Yeah,
side,
myself, yeah.
one face is 117, it's got 2 faces, so each face is 117, so
That's, yeah.
234 would be the total
Right.
amount of signage? It's 2 faces?
That's the way I'm taking that, yes. Which still falls within the conditional use, for a sign in that particular district.
In case of 2 identical messages face to face, the entire surface area of a freestanding projecting marquee is the surface area.
Means like this
When a
one here,
message is
that's
applied
back,
to the
it's kind of
background.
Yeah.
If a sign has more than one display face and it is not identical and back to back, each face shall be considered a separate sign. Otherwise, it looks like it's considered one sign. If you just kept going to the next page, the
Oh, here, look
the
at this,
definition
too. It's like,
under I,
not printed there, not printed there, printed there.
I too.
Anything else get paged down there, if you want, can put it on one side.
Right.
Oh, okay.
We gotta fix it.
So because both sides will be identical and back to back, it's just one side.
it's just one sign.
So that becomes kind of a fine point of, well, electronic message board, you could potentially have different messages on your sign, but, you know, that's split hairs probably. I mean, I don't wanna get into
Yeah.
regulating content.
Okay.
You can ask them, but I would believe their message board is gonna be the same on both sides, as the message goes, it's gonna be the same on, just like subways. No matter which way you look at it, it's the same message going across.
Yeah.
there'll probably be more information in the packet and coming to you, but it's just a heads up for next month.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have anything they wanna bring up there, or, and I'll mull it over till next month?
Nope, glad you're back.
So, anybody have any other business, anything you wanna bring up? I guess the one thing, it's not other business, and not something for here, but pursuant to the way we made our changes, election of officers will have to be at your next meeting. So, keep that one in mind, I guess. Right.
Is Dwayne at the next meeting then, or?
Mm-hmm. Well, whoever he
Whoever-
appoints on Wednesday.
Whoever the
No.
city council chooses to appoint, I guess, would be
Yeah,
that.
yes, exactly.
But the way
Yeah,
we
we're trying
change
to
it
not
is it's
jump
our first
ahead.
meeting, our first meeting of the calendar year, which technically is tonight, but, we sort of rolled things back a month, looks like, so. So your next meeting, you'll have to come up with that one, so.
Well, thank you for your service, Steve.
You're welcome. So, if we have no other business, I'll adjourn the meeting.
Okey-dokey.
Do you have this blue binder, or you have the light blue binder? 'Cause you're under.
I have a blue like this.
Oh, you had a blue like
I have my
that.
city one
Your book
also
is up
like
to
that.
Oh, great.
I thought your city one is.
Is there a
what your
reason?
zoning section in
I
your
mean,
city
it's
one
like,
looks like.
I'm just gonna guess.